Welcome to the Cold Case Christianity broadcast, the only Christian case-making program hosted by a cold case homicide detective. J. Warner Wallace has been investigating cold case murders in Los Angeles County for over a decade. His work has been featured on Fox News, Court TV, and Dateline. For more information about Jim's work and the case for Christianity, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. Now, here's your host, J. Warner Wallace.
Thanks for joining us at Cold Case Christianity. I'm J. Warner Wallace. Well, I was thinking about this. We have completed four seasons of 25 episodes each of our show. And this is the beginning of our fifth season of Cold Case Christianity at NRBtv. And so we're going to do 25 episodes for this season. You know, I was thinking about this before. When I was young, that was about what a season would be, about 26 episodes of anything on TV. Back when networks were reigning as the only way to watch TV, ABC, NBC, CBS, most production companies would film 26 episodes of their show, and then it would slip into reruns. 26 plus 26 gives you 52 weeks, so you'd have your regular season and you'd have your rerun season. Boy, that has changed, hasn't it, with the basically the technology of choice, as I like to think of it, because now we have all kinds of choices online, and sometimes you might have two seasons of a show occur within 10 months, where it used to be it took a whole year to get to season 2. This has changed quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I have actually been working with networks who will constantly contact us through the website, and they'll say, hey, are you interested in a show on one of these detective networks? And a season might just be 6 or 7 or 8 episodes. That's it. So it's definitely changed from what it was when I was younger. What we're trying to do here is go 25 weeks of fresh content, and then you can rotate that through. We have 100 episodes of Cold Case Christianity already online being rotated at NRBtv. I hope you've joined us for some of those, and maybe you're just finding us for the first time. You will see those kind of get mixed in, those older episodes. But this season, we're going to do something for the entire season, 25 episodes, that we haven't done in the past, and I hope will be the most helpful season so far of Cold Case Christianity. And what we're going to try to do are answer the 25 most common objections that are offered to Christianity. Now, I realize that other people have done that. There are lots of books that you can look at, and there are also lots of online resources for that kind of thing. And we will be posting our resources related to these top 25 objections on our website at coldcasechristianity.com. You'll see it there. We're going to have a section that we're going to call quick shots, and that's simply going to be a place where you can go and get these quick responses. Now, what we're going to do, though, on the show is not just give you the answer, the response that you might get, or might want to offer, for example, if somebody pushes back and makes an objection. We're going to try to do it in such a way that it's conversational. What I want to do is give you just a very brief way to overcome the hurdle and get back in the game of the conversation you're having. Because let's face it, a lot of times, these objections that are offered to Christianity or to God's existence in general can be conversation stoppers, where they simply halt the conversation right where it is, and you can't go much further because the objection's been offered, and then you're sitting there wondering to yourself, well, how do I overcome that objection? Or maybe I'm not even skilled enough to do that, or maybe this turns into an argument or a debate, and it could be a mess, right? So what we want to do in this series over the next 25 weeks is to give you conversational responses, and we'll be talking about this along the way, that'll help you to respond in a way that it keeps the conversation going. A lot of times the things we're going to be talking about are the kinds of questions you could offer that would help you to navigate the conversation. And these are going to be brief, because that's the whole goal, right? And what inspired this for me is working with Frank Turek, a good friend of mine, and we do a lot of work together. And he has got an app for his ministry at crossexamined.org. And in this app, he likes to tease that, heck, if you got stuck in a conversation, you could look down at your app real quickly. You could say, I'm getting a message from somebody. Look at your phone, open up the app, get the quick response you need, and then say, how about this? And you could offer a response. Well, of course, we say that teasingly, but most of the time our responses online and even on phone apps are almost too robust to use in the moment, to use during a conversation. Well, we've designed a phone app at Cold Case Christianity, and you'll find it on the app tab at coldcasechristianity.com. And what we're trying to do is build a set of resources there called quick shots that in fact are exactly what we're talking about. These are the kinds of quick responses. They're only going to occupy the space of one screen. You're not going to have to scroll through these to read these. These are going to be around 150 words or so that will give you the quickest possible answer and help you to form the questions that would keep the conversation going. And that's what we really want to do. Because let's face it, we can always go deeper. And we've written thousands of articles at coldcasechristianity.com, hundreds of videos. And if you had time to read through all that, this is why we write books. We write books because it's really the best way to go deep into the material you need to master. I say it all the time. You know, I was on a movie called God's Not Dead 2. And in that movie, they gave me 6 minutes to make the case for the reliability of Scripture. Just 6 minutes to make that case. Now, I always ask people, look, if somebody gave you 6 minutes to make the case for Christianity, would you even know how to cobble together 6 minutes worth of information? Of course, you have to have hours of information in your head in order to cobble together the 6 minutes you might use in front of any particular person, because the context will be different. The person you're talking to will be different. So what I want to do here is to, in the next 25 weeks, offer you the briefest possible responses we can. And this will help you, I hope, continue these conversations. Now, there's another reason why I think we need to be brief. We are actually in a generation of young people who, for the most part, want the answer quickly. I mean, the attention span of millennials was much shorter than it was of Gen X or boomers. And now it's being reported that the attention span of Gen Z is even shorter than that. Now, look, we can argue about that and say, well, they ought to do better than that. But really, I don't think I can solve that problem. What I can do, though, is to try to make my responses as rhetorically powerful and as brief as I possibly can, so that they then can navigate in a world that doesn't give them a lot of time to make a response. Let's face it, the most powerful objections to Christianity are sometimes made in those 280 characters that are available to you on Twitter. If you don't have the ability to respond rhetorically, to respond in a powerful way, you're basically going to be left without a response at all. No one's going to give you the time it takes to read the entire page. They're only going to give you the time it takes to finish a sentence. So that's what we're going to do over the next 25 weeks. We're going to take some difficult topics, 25 of the most common objections to theism, the belief in God, and to Christianity, and we're going to offer the briefest possible answers. So get ready, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle the first objection in the category of truth, and then we'll give you a brief response.
Be sure to download the free Cold Case Christianity app from the iTunes Store and the Android Marketplace. The Cold Case Christianity app puts all the resources from coldcasechristianity.com in the palm of your hand. You can read the daily blog, listen to podcasts, and watch videos from within the application. And Jim uses the app to send direct messages to fans of Cold Case Christianity. The app will also link you to all the Cold Case Christianity social media and provide you with a direct connection to J. Warner Wallace. Download the app today and become a better Christian case maker.
Jim, as a once angry atheist, something about the Gospels struck you as being more than, and I quote you, moralistic mythologies. They actually appeared to be ancient eyewitness accounts, and that very fact became important to you. Why?
I think because when I first started, I was just interested in Jesus' words. So if it had been just a list like the Gospel of Thomas, a list of the quotes of Jesus, the kind of proverbial wisdom of Jesus, that would be one kind of document. But of course, the Gospels aren't that at all. The Gospels appear to be recording a series of events that include Jesus' words, but they appear to be a historical account. And that's a very different proposal altogether. That means that if it is history, if it's a claim about something that actually happened, it means it's falsifiable. In other words, it's like my cold cases. I have people who will say, hey, I saw this is what happened, and they give me a narrative. Well, I can actually go in and take a look and see if that's reliable. Is that true? Did it actually happen? Is it falsifiable? And that gives me a point of context, a point of reference to begin an investigation. You'd have a hard time doing that if, for example, all we have was the Gospel of Thomas, a series of proverbial statements for the most part from Jesus. We'd have a really hard time even doing any kind of an historical investigation to see if it actually occurred. But these don't have that kind of contextual feeling. As I read through them, I saw they had properties that were similar to the properties of eyewitnesses when you have more than one witness to see in an event. When you have multiple eyewitness accounts, they have a certain characteristic, a certain flavor. And at first, as I read through these, I didn't really put my finger on what it was about them. I have in the book, but for me, my gut instinct as an investigator said, wow, that's interesting. I've seen that before in a robbery. I've seen that before in a homicide account. So it just caused me to take the next step. I think we're blessed as Christians that we don't believe something that's not rooted in history. We believe something that had to actually occur. As Paul said, if the resurrection didn't actually occur in history, we're to be pitied. They're lying as eyewitnesses, he says. We're a lie. It's all a lie. And that's the beautiful thing about Christianity, is it's something you can actually investigate. I'm grateful for that, because as an investigator, that's exactly how I came to faith. Okay, we're going to start by answering an objection in this category of truth. So here is the objection we're going to answer, and it's simply this. There are no objective truths. There are no objective truths. So Jim, don't tell me that there's some truth about Christianity, or really anything. I mean, everything is a matter of personal opinion. Everything is a matter of subjective opinion. Everyone's got a different view about all kinds of things, especially spiritual things. And really, there are no objectively true things. Everything is just a matter of perspective. So we would say that, and the culture will sometimes argue that there are perspectival truths, but there really aren't overarching truths that can be applied to every person in every situation, no matter where you are in history. Now, this is an important objection, and in some ways, some of you are hearing this objection, maybe in a sense, and you're saying, well, God, that's a silly objection, right? I mean, is anyone really ever going to say that? Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, this view is being taught largely in many college campuses around America, and it's been absorbed culturally, I think. This idea, look, we all want personal autonomy. This is the tail that wags a lot of dogs in our culture right now, the high value for just leave me alone. Let me decide who I am, where I go, what I do. And this idea of personal autonomy, including personal moral autonomy, is really grounded in this idea that there are no objective truths about morality, objective truths about God, objective truths about how I should behave, what I should do, how I should think. Everything is a matter of personal, and if you want to tolerate me, if you want to be tolerant of me, if you want, that's defined by whether or not you will accept that my view is equally as valid as your view. As a matter of fact, the definition of tolerance has been grounded in this new idea that, hey, to be tolerant, you must view all views. You must consider all views equally meritorious, equally valid. So this notion that we should be able to respond to this, because it may not take that verbal shape, that there are no objective truths, but you'll see it be pitched in some other way. Well, that's not really, it's true for you, but it's not really true for me. There's nothing that's really overarching about truth. I mean, we can all have different truth. You're going to hear this objection a number of different ways. And we're going to have to be able to answer it, to move past it, because if there is no truth, then there is no truth about God. And if there is no truth about God, there's no truth about Christianity. Do you see how everything stands on this platform, this foundation of the first questions which are surrounding the issues of truth, objective truth claims? And what we mean by objective truth claims is simply that there are some things that are not simply a matter of personal opinion. Subjects don't get to decide. Now look, we have some subjective truths. As a subject, I can decide what my favorite dessert is. I can decide what my favorite vehicle is. I have some personal preferences, but to say that everything is a matter of subjective preference, those are called subjective truth claims, is the problem here, because there's no point we're not going to argue with people about whether or not they should accept chocolate chip ice cream as their favorite dessert. The subjective claims are not worth arguing about. But on the other hand, if you think you have a cure for cancer, and you have the single cure, it's this pill you take, and the cure is in this object called the cancer-curing pill, well, then this is going to be objectively true for no matter who it takes the pill, because the object determines whether or not that's true or not. You can take the thing and it may not be the cure at all. It'd be an objectively false claim. But the point is, your opinion can't change whether something cures a disease. This object, the pill, that's going to determine whether or not it cures the disease. There are some objectively, because objective claims are grounded in objects, that makes them true or false. Subjective claims are grounded in subjects that decide if they're true or false. We have to be able to help our young people see that there are some objective claims. So if someone was to say to you, there are no objective claims, there are no objective truths, what would you say in response? That's what we want to cover right now. So I'll give you two possible responses to this, so you have some options, and I'll put them on the screen so you can kind of track along with me. And these are brief. These are also, of course, on our phone app, so you can refer to these quickly if you needed to. So here is the first response that you would offer, you could offer. And you just say this conversationally. If someone said to me, there are no objective truths, I might say something like, well, are you sure? I mean, is that statement you just made, is that objectively true? I mean, if there are no objective truths, now think about this, then the statement, there are no objective truths, can't be objectively true, right? Because it's also a claim that is an objective claim about truth, that there are no objectively true things. Do you see the problem there? You know, as it turns out, all of us accept some objective truth claims, just as you do when you claim there is no objective truth. The only thing left then is to decide which claims are objectively true and which are simply a matter of personal opinion. Have you ever considered the claims that Christians make about God? Do you think these kinds of claims are objective or subjective? Now you'll see as I've kind of framed that out, right? As I've framed out for you this idea, this response to this claim, I've left it with some open questions that are not just yes or no questions. They're questions that I hope will prompt a conversation. And then you have to be ready to answer when someone says, because if you're going to ask that question, is any claim about God objectively is it an objective claim or a subjective claim? You have to be ready to respond to that. And in this case, of course, we would say, look, if you wanted to know what makes a claim a subjective claim, simply ask yourself the question, can your opinion change it? Because if it's based on your personal subjective opinion, so if you said, hey, chocolate cake is the best dessert ever, that's your opinion, you could change that claim by simply changing your opinion. And if you change your mind about your favorite dessert, well, then you'll just change your mind and say this is no longer what I consider to be subjectively true. You would say, I've changed my mind about my favorite dessert. Now, God's existence, is this an objective claim or a subjective claim? If I said that God exists, I could be wrong. I could be making a false claim. But my opinion can't make God exist if he doesn't, and my personal opinion can't keep God from existing if he does. This is grounded in the object called God. Either God exists or God doesn't, but you and our opinion has no sway over this issue. So I'm not going to, at this point, you don't have to even offer whether or not God does exist or doesn't exist, but just remember, the claim is an objective claim. And all that's left to decide when you discover that something is objective rather than subjective is to ask the question, is it true or false? But the issue about, I get it, if it was a subjective claim, you just say, who cares if it's true or false? Who cares if you like chocolate chip cookies or chocolate cake? But this is the kind of claim, a claim about reality, a claim about an object we call God. I know it's a personal being, but just for the sake of objective, subjective, that claim you cannot change with your opinion. That's something you need to be able to start the conversation. I could be wrong about my claim that God exists, but it's not an unimportant subjective claim. It's a very important objective claim. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll offer a slightly different response to the claim that there are no objective truths.
If I told you that God visited me yesterday in a dream, in a vision, and gave me 3 important things to tell you, you might rightly say, I'm not quite sure that's true. how do I know that God gave you 3 things to tell me? Well, I would say, look, I've had an experience. It's a vision. This vision was as real for me as any vision I've ever experienced. You need to trust me. This really happened. This really was my vision. I don't know, Jim. I'm not quite sure I can trust you for this. Okay, that's one way of making the case. What if I told it to you this way? What if I said, God came to me yesterday in the form of a human and gave me 3 things to tell you. And he had lunch with me in my backyard with 3 of my friends. Not only that, he looked over my dry grass in Southern California and he said, I can help you build an irrigation ditch for this. And we laid pipe in the irrigation ditch in my backyard. Then he looked at my tree and he said, I can help you with a tree house for your kids. And he built this amazing tree house all in a couple of hours. It was incredible. Now, that kind of claim, the second kind of claim, is very different than the first kind of claim. The first kind of claim is based on a private vision. You can never test. You can never verify it or falsify it. You're just kind of stuck with it. But the second kind of claim, that's actually something you can test because it's grounded in an activity, in an event that took place yesterday in my backyard. You could talk to my friends. You could examine that irrigation ditch. You could look at that tree and see how cool that tree house is. In other words, you could actually attempt to falsify it or verify it. I mention this because the claims of Christianity are in the second category, not the first. We have a claim that's grounded on an event that happened in history called the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's very different than other theistic claims, like Buddhistic claims, for example. You can test our kind of claim because it's grounded in history. And that's what we ought to be doing. We ought to be seeing this examination of evidence as an act of worship. Here's what I mean by that. It's not unusual for us to see worship as simply the songs we sing on church on Sunday, or it's the prayers we offer God, or it's our effort to serve in our local community, or to do a short-term or a long-term missions trip. But there's another way to worship God that is commanded in Scripture. We're to worship God with all of our heart, our soul, all of our mind. So the question becomes, well, how is it we can worship God with our mind? The time you're taking right now to consider the things of God is in fact an act of worship, because you could be spending this time doing any number of other things. And that would also be a form of worship toward those other things. Instead, when we focus on why Christianity is true, we now are worshiping God with our mind. And that's what we do when we develop a forensic faith.
Okay, let me give you a slightly different response to this claim that there are no objective truths. Hopefully one that'll start a conversation, that'll get people thinking, that has a few questions embedded in them. Again, these are all available both at our website, coldcasechristianity.com, and on the phone app, the Cold Case Christianity phone app, okay? All right, so let's offer the second possible way to respond to this, because this would be another slightly nuanced way. You could say it this way, and it's on your screen. And again, we're going to capitalize on what we just talked about in the last segment. There are 2 kinds of truth claims, objective and subjective. Now, objective claims are grounded in objects, and subjective claims are grounded in subjects, basically individuals. So when I say a chocolate chip cookie is the best cookie, that's simply my personal subjective opinion. But when I say that isoniazid is the cure for tuberculosis, that truth is more than simply my opinion. It's grounded in the object, the cure, known as isoniazid. Now that drug either cures TB or it doesn't. In my opinion, doesn't make it true or false. To say that there are no objective truth claims is to deny this claim about isoniazid. If there are no objective truth claims, then there's no objective truth claims even about the drugs that cure diseases. Have you considered how dangerous that approach would be? Now take a look at how we approached it this second time. And in some ways, this is more instructional, right? I mean, because we can make these kinds of responses, and sometimes it's a matter of, and I hate to say this, but we see this on video, we see this on YouTube, we see this in debates, where it's really not an effort to say something substantive that would define the problem and actually offer a way out. It's really just an effort to say something rhetorically powerful. Like, I got slapped, and this doesn't make much sense, but it sure sounded aggressive and pithy and engaging. And so you find yourself, how do I respond to that? And and you're kind of stuck there flat-footed, and I'm looking for a pithy kind of zinger to come back. No, this is an approach where we're going to say, hey, well, what if we actually teach a little bit about the difference between objective and subjective? And then remember, if you're going to toss the notion that there are objective claims about reality, if you're going to say there are no objective claims, and remember, you're also going to have to say there are no objective claims about things that you want there to be objective claims about. And we all want cures to be objectively true. Because if I go to a doctor and he says, well, I know people say that isoniazid will cure your tuberculosis, but in my opinion, sugar cookies are so much tastier than isoniazid. Oh my gosh, isoniazid tastes terrible. We have to shoot it in your arm because it tastes so bad. You wouldn't want to take it in pill form. But hey, sugar cookies, those taste really good. And in my opinion, you should eat sugar cookies. Look, we want cures to fall into we recognize that they fall in the objective truth category. So what we want to do is to help people see the difference. We instruct them a little bit about the difference between objective and subjective, and then we kind of ask them how dangerous it would be to slip everything into subjective opinion. Look, let's face it. For the most part, people accept objective claims about truth, but where they get squirrely, a little bit wiggly, is when those objective claims try to limit their autonomy. If we're very honest about it, we hold a view of the world, Christianity, that makes claims about sin, about the nature of God, about our behavior. And these things for a lot of people are going to be difficult. They would much rather sin be a matter of personal opinion, moral behavior be a matter of personal opinion. Then they could never be wrong because they get to say, in my opinion, this is not wrong. But if there is an overarching truth, even about your behaviors, that's going to make people uncomfortable. And that's what to be sensitive to. This may not be a matter of, well, do I even know the difference between objective and subjective? Do I have a good philosophical underpinning for this? It may simply be, what do I want to be true? As my friend Frank Turk often says, we're not always on a truth quest, we're sometimes on a happy quest. So we have to be able to understand that difference. All right, what we've done today, I hope, is to give you a couple of relatively quick responses to a very common objection that we hear in many different forms that's related to truth. Remember, you can get more of these responses on our app, our phone app, which is downloadable from both iTunes and on the Android platform. And you can see the links to those on our Cold Case Christianity website. All right, so I hope that's helpful for you, and I'll see you right back here next week on the Cold Case Christianity television show.
Thanks for joining us at the Cold Case Christianity broadcast. If you're interested in more information about this week's topic, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. For a thorough investigation of the reliability of the New Testament Gospels and the case for Christianity, be sure to purchase Cold Case Christianity, God's Crime Scene, Forensic Faith, and Alive.